We are suggesting that the freedom in the home be as if your home were in fact a castle with walls, you know, walls and a moat and everything. And it has to kind of look like that in the mind of anybody who wants something from you. It is your home, your property. No tax will take it away. No government official can enter to investigate anything other than with a warrant. No robber will be so foolish as to step on the property because it's yours. Everyone who is there must have permission to enter and stay and must leave when asked. Here's where you have the freedom to investigate the world you live in the manner you choose, with no interference from anyone else. This is where you have maximum freedom. This is what they're suggesting, maximum freedom in the home. Now, then they recognize that you have a problem. What do we do with the current and new atrocities that occur in a home because of the unsupervised condition found there? Do you see what we're aiming at? We do understand that more freedom in the home will give those who are dominion bent even more chance to perform their atrocities. We have shown you that we don't believe the government has done its job of keeping us safe with the freedoms we now have. How is the government going to do it when we are given the freedom suggested above? A castle keeps danger out unless the danger is already inside. The castle protects that person who would cause the danger. We see the problem. And what they say is we ask you to compare the new system, the one they're suggesting after reading all of Book 4, to the now system, not the perceived now, but the real now. We have to correct that which we have now and make it better with the new system that we're recommending. That is our focus and our intent. It is our intent to make the home a castle. In a castle there will be atrocities because there are so many of those who, if given the freedom, would take advantage. We know that far better than the do-gooders or anyone else, it would seem. The now system allows all manners of atrocities in the home, and there is little done that is effective to prevent it. And then they say, carefully understand what we said. We said there is little done that is effective to prevent it. That means adult abuse and child abuse. There's almost nothing being done to prevent that abuse. Now, well, they're saying that by the way, they capitalize the prevent here. They say we're doing almost nothing to prevent that abuse. Now, a little research in that area would show you that that's true, that we have tremendous abuse and there's nothing being done to prevent it, nothing effective anyway. So they go on and say, now we're asking for even more freedom in the home, and the atrocities will surely increase. So what are we going to do about those kinds of problems? Doesn't the government have the right to enter a home and correct those problems? The key word and the lie is that your government officials can somehow correct the conditions that are found in the home of America. They don't, and as long as you believe they can, you will see the continuous atrocities in the home. Ask any police officer if, in truth, he or she has made any difference when called to a domestic dispute. Will they tell you that no matter what happens at that point later, they will tell you this. They'll tell you no matter what happens at the point somebody goes to jail or they're bawled out or whatever, no matter what they do, later the problem just reoccurs. The change only comes when one or both of those that are fighting decide they've had enough. And it kind of is a decision of their point of view. So when you're talking about adult abuse, they're basically saying that we're not doing anything effective. And if you talk to the police or the officials, they'll tell you that they go back again and again and again, and nothing effective is being done. So then you go to, and they want to go to ask any court official about child abuse. It goes on and on forever. Why? Because you believe the courts are taking care of it, when you realize that they aren't, and only then will something be done about it. Now they're now they are taking care of the abuse after the fact, and unless we can find a better way, that remains. However, what about before the abuse? Couldn't we have better education system for the adults? Couldn't we have a better education system totally, both the children and the adults? And they say not sex education for a 4-year-old, but what touch is okay and what touch is not okay, and to add to that very clearly who to tell if an inappropriate touch has happened, and that person who to tell will be someone that the child will actually go to and talk to. That's an education. They're saying, here's an education thing that we need. We need to educate all the children what touch is appropriate and what touch isn't appropriate at any age. And then we also need, and this is one of the things that we don't pay any attention to, is that the child does know who to tell if there's an inappropriate touch, and that person that you're going to tell will be somebody that the child will actually go to. In other words, is not afraid to, or you know how the system works. That child is going to go to that person and tell that person and talk to that person, and that person is going to take up where the child left off and resolve the problem. We don't have that. We don't have that now. So they're saying there's still this tremendous amount of abuse, and nobody's really doing anything that is effective. And they say, is that education that we just discussed too much to ask to get 80% of the abuse in the homes down to 20%? I kind of wondered about the 80%, but I actually ended up talking to some officials that are not allowed to say anything about court cases. I mean, they're all sealed. But I just said I thought the percentage was at least 50%. That if you I don't want you to tell me anything. I absolutely, you're not allowed to put your thumb up or your thumb down. And they put their thumb up, and I said 60 and thumb up, and 80, and they're right there. So professionals where I live said 80%. They didn't say anything. Sorry, they're not allowed to say anything, but indicated that there could be at least 80% of a problem in the county that I lived in. And believe me, after talking to other people, it would appear that it's the same in all counties. So we haven't taken care of the problem. We seem to be able to resolve the after the event to the satisfaction of everybody, but before the event, you got to believe that we can do more. I mean, you got to believe that we can educate more. Well, they go on. So they say, with that understanding that we want to do more, we would start with 3 concepts that will change the way we view and handle what happens in the home. Before those concepts are discussed, we must again state that we want more and varied experiences, not do-good life only. Now, obviously, we're not talking about children, we're talking about the adults. Because of that fact, we will allow choices to be made and consequences to be felt by those who make the choices. The intent is to stay out of the home and stay out of people's lives unless called to help, or the abuse becomes obvious to outsiders. And again, very carefully, we're not talking about child abuse here. I mean, we will, but I mean, we're talking about adults here. Stay out of their adults' business unless you can. Well, actually, they say 2 things. Number 1, if they call for help, make sure that you give them help, and if they, not have people who are do-gooders sticking their nose in other people's lives and saying, "Oh, you can't do that." But it's a conflict between 2 adults, and why is an outsider not a professional of any kind, not any person that should, as a do-gooder? We told you what that is. Why would a do-gooder be allowed to tell you that you can't do what you want in your home? You understand what we're saying? stay out of the person's home, let them live their life there, give them more freedom there. Remember, go through the whole of Book 4 before you make any decisions. So they go on. They got 3 concepts. The first concept is education. If everyone knows what the limits of action are, and they can still choose to stay within those limits or choose to enter the legal system. If the abused knows what is acceptable to society, they may choose it. Now, these are adults. They're saying you're being taught, you're being educated so that you know what abuse is. So there's no woman or man in an adult situation that's being abused that doesn't know that society says this is abuse, this isn't. And it's going to be broader than what we have now, but not physical. And maybe not even mental. But what they're saying is that they can choose to leave the home, or they can choose to stay and accept the conditions in the home. We would allow that choice if they were educated. The second concept is that government must stay out of our lives except when called upon. What do we mean? We're talking about our home and those times when there is abuse that needs to be taken care of by somebody. We have educated all persons in the home about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in society's view. And that's a dangerous area, but one that obviously we'll be going into. In situations where education doesn't work, we might ask the government to step in and help. And here's where the focus of the second concept comes in. First, the government must be asked to help by the adult, and the adult in the home. We need no intervention because some person feels that the life at another person's home is not to his or her liking. Castle home, walls, nobody can see. It's nobody's business what's going on in the home, unless, of course, the adult in the home asks. Second, the help must be just that, help. The government must be able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the help offered works, and the person's better off for the help that's offered. We need no intervention that looks like it is helping, only to find out that the person asking for the help is worse off after the help happens than before. If the government intervenes, it must make the person's condition better in that person's eyes. If we find that that isn't possible, then stay out of the home and stay out of the supposed helping business. Again, we're talking about adults, and what are they saying? They're saying, you go in there, well, you actually know what they're saying. You send the police in there, and the police are saying, we didn't do anything, they're back at it again next week. So obviously, if you ask the person that was called to do the job, they're going to tell you that nothing constructive happened, it's still the same as it was before. If the person's thrown in jail for whatever period of time for abuse, the next thing that happens is that 2 weeks later they're doing it again because they're out, and the person is back in the home and blah blah blah. So they get down to what they're going to do about it, but they're saying if you can't make a change in that situation, why are we? You got to remember the police are. When you get into law, the police are different, and they're not going to be your babysitters anymore. They're not. I mean, come on. If you want a babysitter, pay for one. These police officers can have other things to do that they don't need to babysit these people who are so immature that they're fighting all the time. So, basically they're saying if you're going to do something, if you're going to get in there, if you're going to get between those two people, you do something that works. And obviously the thing that would best work would be education, if it would work. And so then they go on and say the third concept is that we must change the laws that interfere with the implementation of the two implementation of the two concepts above should be put into law so that the people, everybody else, would be understand that they're not to interfere. In other words, it's the law. You cannot go in there and interfere. So, that's cool. It's the law. And, the government will actually take care of the problem And that's the key to the whole thing. There are people that are always tempted to interfere with a person's life everywhere, and the federal government says that we will take care of it, stay out of it, and that would be great if they did, and the ones who give this information are saying they aren't doing it, but here's how.